What's going on? The Matt Bernier Show, DRFTV, live.drf.com, livestream.com, the Daily Racing Forms Twitter handle that would be at DRF Inside Post, as well as the Daily Racing Forms Facebook page. My name is Matt Bernier. You can follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. Today is Friday, January the 19th, 2018. If you listen to this show in podcast version, which I know many of you do, a number of ways to do it. YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com. Probably not going to get a full half hour out of today's show. We're going to tighten it up a little bit simply because last week there was no sort of preview leading into the weekend. We'll go over what everyone seems to like to talk about this time of year. And I understand I tweeted it and prefaced it by saying an entirely too early talk about 3-year-olds. But it is worth bringing up, and then we'll lead into a couple of races. We'll go over 2 of them from Gulfstream Park tomorrow afternoon. That is Sunshine Million Saturday, as well as the Graded Stakes race from out of the Great Race Place, Santa Anita. Let's start off, though, with the idea of what I consider right now the 5 most intriguing Derby prospects. And again, I know it's really early. And I'm just saying the 5 most intriguing prospects. It's really in no particular order. Maybe I'm a little bit biased with certain horses here or there. But the idea behind it is, I understand it's the middle of January, and they're not going to run the big race until the first Saturday in May, but historically anyway, since this point system has been implemented, there really isn't a hell of a lot of change between the beginning of the year and when you get to the first Saturday in May. You're going to have horses that once they really put themselves into position to get the points and take advantage, and even early on, whether it's early season races or even 2-year-old races that award Derby points, things kind of stay, I don't want to say static, but what you see is what you get. So you're obviously going to get some new faces, some fresh faces, as we saw last year with a horse like Always Dreaming, who kind of showed up at the very end. He won the Florida Derby, and then all of a sudden he goes on to win the Kentucky Derby. But for the majority anyway, a lot of these horses that are on this list right now, the top 20 anyway, you're going to see a fair amount of them actually run in the Kentucky Derby, and this is obviously barring any sort of issues physically or anything else like that. So anyway, long story short, here we are. These are the 5 that I think at the moment right now anyway are the most interesting, let's say, Derby prospects going forward, whether it's from a tactical standpoint, whether it's connections, whether it's just how fast they've run thus far, and ultimately, do I think they're going to want to go this far? So let's start off with the horse called McKinsey. McKinsey, we are well aware of what happened in Los Alamitos Futurity. We'll touch on that race shortly here, but his most recent run was really one that I think if you were a little bit of a non-believer before, you at least have to take him a little bit more seriously. This is Michael Rona with the stretch call of the Sham.
Me Timbers could not go with McKinsey. Just took up a little bit there, but looked to be tiring at the time. My boy Jack running 4th. McKinsey strides clear at the 8th pole. Puts 2 lengths on All Out Blitz. 4 lengths away, Shiver Me Timbers with My Boy Jack. But it's a domineering display by the ultra-talented McKinsey as he takes the Sham while well in hand. 3.5 lengths to All Out Blitz.
Here is the horse card for McKinsey. This is a horse he's undefeated technically. At the end of the day, he technically did lose one of the races, but you get what I'm saying here. This is a nice horse. He's really done nothing wrong. He goes out there. He's still a little bit immature. I don't know if you want to take anything out of the tail flashing, the tail swishing, which he still has done. He's really done it in all 3 of his lifetime starts. I just like the fact that he's shown some versatility where he's not a need-to-lead type, which is so dangerous this time of year because the likelihood of a horse streaking off to set the tone and set the fractions in the Kentucky Derby and holding on for 1.25 miles, I mean, it's a tall ask. It's a tall order. I think this is the kind of horse that you want to see where he's adaptable. He can come from a little bit farther out of it. He can sit just off. I know Mike Smith made it a concerted effort to keep him out in the clear and let's not have any kind of craziness, any quirkiness go on. Again, the tail swishing thing, we'll find out. I don't know if that's something that he'll grow out of or not. Until he does something wrong, though, I'm not going to sit here and knock this horse. All he does is show up and run good races. And I think right now he's on the short list of intriguing Derby prospects going forward. We'll find out what his next race is, whether it's a race like the Bob Lewis or if they wait a little bit longer and just go right into a race like the Santa Anita Derby. But it feels like all along the plan was to kind of give him a little bit of time after the Los Al Futurity and then slowly bring him back into things. But Baffert even said it. This is a horse he probably needs a little bit of racing. So there you are. They run him. He goes out there, struts his stuff, flatters the form of the Los Alamitos Futurity a little bit more, along with Solomini and Instilled Regard. You will hear both of those names here momentarily. But before we get to that, let's talk about the let's say the favorite for the 2-year-old Eclipse Award, as far as the males are concerned, Good Magic. This is his run in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile when he defeated, at the time anyway, the horse that everyone thought was going to be just a cinch to be the 2-year-old champion, that being Bolt Doro. You see Bolt Doro, he's on the far outside right now, about 3 or 4 lengths off of it. And Good Magic at this point, keep in mind he was a maiden when he ran in this race, and he goes on, and a heck of a way to break your maiden and get back onto the beam here. He goes off, does very, very well, looks like he could be the goods for Chad Brown. I won't be surprised if he ends up winning the 2-year-old Eclipse Award. As I noted a few weeks ago when I went over my ballot, I didn't vote for him. I picked him second behind Bolt Doro, just on the overall body of work. But I won't argue with anyone that picks Good Magic. I think Good Magic would be a deserving 2-year-old champion should he ultimately win this thing. From a Derby kind of situation, we've got to wait and see. It's always an unknown. You'd like to think that these 2-year-olds turning 3 are just slam dunks, that they're going to continue to move forward, but we've seen it so often in the past that these precocious 2-year-olds, sometimes they don't continue on and they don't necessarily improve. I'm going to be surprised if that's the case with Good Magic. I think he has all the things that you're looking for. He's got the pedigree, he has the connections, he has the running style. There's a lot of things to like about Good Magic, other than possibly the price. You know, wherever he shows up, whenever he comes back, he's going to be the favorite, or if he's not the favorite, he's going to be very, very close second choice. He's going to be a short price no matter what. I think he has everything going for him, but again, it's just the sort of little unknown is until they come back and show you that from 2 to 3 they move forward, you never truly know. But I think there are a lot of good things to like about Good Magic, and he is obviously one of the more, let's say, interesting and likely Derby prospects going forward whenever he does come back to the races. Speaking of whenever he does come back to the races, Solomini. I touched on the Los Alamitos Futurity, said we would talk about the race. Here it is. This is the stretch run of the Los Al Futurity. The problem with Solomini at this point in his career anyway, it sounds like he had a little bit of a temperature and a little bit of a hiccup in training. Now you see he's on the outside right now. McKenzie is down on the rail. Instilled Regard is between the 2 horses. And there's going to be a little bit of bumping and banging. And Still Regard's going to get sandwiched between the 2 of them. McKenzie comes out a little bit. Solomini ultimately is going to come in a little bit, and he's going to pop back to his left lead. The thing with Solomini, I think, and I kind of feel like this is what the plan would have been had he not had any sort of a hiccup, or maybe also Baffert had to call an audible when he says McKenzie needs some more racing. Solomini looks like the kind of horse to me that needs more racing. And he's got a little bit of a temperature. He's missed a little bit of training. Apparently it's not the end of the world, but you know, starting off the year, you never want to see any sort of a hiccup or have any sort of a setback. We saw that last year with Classic Empire. We're seeing that already with Bolt Doro, who we'll talk about after we talk about what I consider the top 5 most intriguing 3-year-olds. I think Solomini, there's a lot of things to like. The pedigree is there. The connections are there. Baffert, you see the Zayat Silks, obviously. Flavian Pratt has ridden him in the past. Whether he stays on or goes somewhere else, we'll find out. But if Solomini can get back into the swing of things in relatively short order, he still fits on here, and he deserves to be on the short list, particularly when you see what McKenzie did coming out of that Los Al Futurity, as well as Instilled Regard coming out of the Los Al Futurity. They've both flattered that form, and if you just want to call a spade and say the horse that finished first, crossed the line first, was Solomini ahead of both of those horses, then you know what? He belongs in the top 5 of any kind of short list, if you will. So I think Solomini, as long as he can get back to the races here relatively quickly and in short order, I think there'll be a scenario where he's certainly a horse that you're going to hear from. A name that it seems like, mainly because he hasn't run in a number of months, but he's just got back in the work tab, I believe either yesterday or the day before, a name that I think people need to really start thinking about is Catholic Boy. For Jonathan Thomas. Catholic Boy is a horse that the first handful of starts in his career, he ran on turf. He ran on turf in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile turf. Far from embarrassed, a little bit of a start and stop trip for him on the far turn, but you can tell there was something there. And then it seemed like it was an interesting spot for Thomas and company to run him in the Remsen. Well, guess what? Wasn't that interesting? It was actually the right call because he went on and put on a show. This is John Imbriall with the call.
In behind the front runners as they come off the turn and enter the stretch. And here is Catholic Boy now to take over the lead. Catholic Boy in front as they pass the 3/16 pole. Catholic Boy with a 3-length lead. Then Avery Island and Vouch and Tap Rap Strike at Alcatam. But it's Catholic Boy, and he may have grown up some today. Catholic Boy wins the Remsen under Manny Franco. Avery Island was second.
Best part about that horse and that effort was the fact that he went on the way that he did. He galloped out like a freight train. That was also at 1 1/8, which I can't overstate the importance of that. I know he's a 2-year-old, and I know things change, and everything I had said about Good Magic also applies to Catholic Boy, that, you know what, you would think they're going to move forward from 2 to 3, but there's no guarantee until they actually do it. This horse, though, when you look at the way that he runs, mile and a quarter, I don't think it's going to be any sort of a problem for him. I think if he comes back in any sort of relative form to what he showed us when we last saw him there winning that Remsen, I think you're looking at a serious racehorse. Not going to go as far as to say if I had to put a top 5, like a proper list together, would he be number 1? I don't know. He'd be up there, though. He's certainly in the top 5 that I think is fascinating because he has a little bit of versatility. I suppose the only concern would be when you get just a breakneck pace signed on, how far back is he going to be? The distance isn't going to be an issue. It's just more a matter of tactically how far back is he going to be and how much running is he going to need to do, and possibly be spotting starts to a horse like McKenzie, who's likely to get the jump on him early on, a horse like Good Magic, who's probably going to be in a similar position. One horse I think is certainly going to get the jump on arguably all of these horses is Instilled Regard. We're going to take a look at his horse profile card. This is Instilled Regard, the winner of the Lecomte this past weekend. You see, he really hasn't done anything wrong. He's never been out of the money from 5 lifetime starts. And the big piece of it is the way that he finished in that most recent start. He's still a little goofy, a little bit green. He continues to flatter the form of the Los Alamitos Futurity. He galloped out like a freight train. He has great connections with Jerry Hollendorfer and company. You see Javier rode him this most recent time. I don't know if that means that Javier will ride him going forward, considering Javier usually has a pretty good handle here on the East Coast, whether it's with Mask for Chad Brown or any other number of outfits. I think the thing with Instilled Regard that is most exciting and most fascinating, I brought it up on the recap show, which you can find on YouTube or video.drf.com anywhere, the fact that he has that nice tactical speed where he doesn't have to come from way out of it. He also doesn't have to go right to the lead, but he's shown in the past that he can take it. I think Instilled Regard right now, to me, is probably the most interesting horse with the most upside. He's still a little green. He's going to need to iron those sort of things out. But of all of these horses, and I think all 5 of them are proper Derby contenders if we continue on farther down the road. But I think that the thing with Instilled Regard is that ability to sit 2 lengths off of it and maybe get the jump on a horse like Catholic Boy, maybe get the jump on a horse like Solimini, maybe even Good Magic and McKenzie. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see again as they continue to progress, go forward throughout this 3-year-old campaign. And again, the biggest thing is they all need to stay healthy. If you have any sort of a hiccup right now, you're way up against it. You're playing catch up, and these horses continue to improve at a rapid rate. It'd be fascinating to see. It seems like we've got a really good crop of 3-year-olds and some horses that I just threw on some sort of a little honorable mention list. Let's not overlook Mourinho, who was as impressive as he was winning the Smarty Jones this past Monday afternoon down at Oaklawn, 99 Beyer speed figure. Still not sure how far ultimately he wants to go. Bolt Doro. The problem with Bolt Doro right now is physically. You got to get to the races sooner than later. Sounds like the San Felipe is in play, but until I see it, I'm going to be a little bit dubious. Avery Island, I think, is an interesting runner for Kieran McLaughlin. This is a horse, he's got the pedigree top and bottom. He's still slowly coming around. He also ran, you saw him in that Remsen replay that Catholic Boy won. I think Avery Island could be one. He's going to need to improve from a speed figure standpoint, but he looks like he has all the scope in the world. And then also Principe Guilherme. I don't want to write him off after just one sort of loss here. He ran very well behind Instilled Regard. He's still very, very green, and I think he's going to need to iron that out very, very quickly if he's going to seriously be considered a Derby prospect. But all things considered, these 3-year-olds, they look like they're very, very talented. Wouldn't surprise me if any one of the 9 that I mentioned end up winning the Derby. Wouldn't be surprising if a horse that I haven't even considered at this point jumps up and runs some sort of a big race. But the reason I chose to go down this road, we know everybody loves talking Derby. We also have to acknowledge that points early on in the season, I think they're more critical than a lot of people would want to admit, even with the point totals going up as we go forward for the Florida Derby and those final round of Derby preps and even the second round of Derby preps. The points are going to go up, but at the same time, it's not necessarily going to change the leaderboard drastically. If you're in the top 20 right now, there's a decent chance that you're going to end up in the top 20 come the first Saturday in May, and maybe you get yourself a starting spot in the gate for the Kentucky Derby. We'll take a quick break here on the Matt Bernier Show. When we come back, we'll dive into some handicapping for this weekend. 2 races from down at Gulfstream Park on Sunshine Million Saturday, as well as a graded stakes race going down the hill at Santa Anita. Stay with us.
California Chrome, straight and strong. Absolutely sensational. California Chrome.
California
To
Chrome.
California Chrome. Away to the Kentucky Derby. California Chrome wins impressively.
He's gone into overdrive. California Chrome wins the Dubai World Cup.
One of the greatest performances you'll ever see.
Chrome turns to gold.
You asked, we listened. DRF Plus has more flexible subscription options. Use DRF Plus Basic for exclusive news and analysis, including our DRF Live real-time news feed. Or go deeper with DRF Pro and unlock buyers, closer looks, picks, and reports, including the DRF Daily Game Plan. DRFTV viewers get 50% off the plan of your choice. Use code DRFTV50 at checkout. Learn more about the DRF Plus subscription plans at drf.com/plus.
Ladies and gentlemen of Cincinnati, clear your dance cards, because this is an invitation from Jack. Jack says the best business to get into is monkey business. Jack says once in a lifetime can happen every night. Damn the torpedoes and tomorrow morning. Prepare to live it up, live it loud, and relive it all over late night chilly three-way. Because Cincinnati, this is really happening.
Welcome back to the Matt Bernier Show, DRFTV, live.drf.com, livestream.com, Daily Racing Form's Twitter handle at DRF Inside Post, as well as the Daily Racing Form Facebook page. You got about 2 minutes till the opener at Aqueduct here on Friday. You got about 10 minutes to the opener in Tampa, 15 till the opener at Laurel. Check it out, podcast. You know the drill. YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com. I'll remind that again at the end of the show. Let's handicap some races, shall we? Let's dive into 2 turf races from Gulfstream Park on Sunshine Millions Saturday. Start off with the big one, Sunshine Millions Turf. This is a field of 8. Let's take a look at that field. If you're new to this thing, on the far right, my odds. Fair value line has nothing to do with the morning line, what I would consider playing these horses to win at. Number 1, Our Way, 4-1, the reigning champion of this race. Number 2, Charlie Mops, could be loose on the lead, 10-1. 3, Spring Up, 9-1. Manchurian High, the 4, 19-1. Coming out of the jump races, broke his maiden over the jumps most recently. That was back in November. Number 5, Galleon Mast, I think is a nice horse, 6-1. Enterprising, 4-1. Second Mate, 12-1. And the number 8, Swagger Jagger, 6-1. I look at this race and say, I think Enterprising, certainly the horse to beat on paper based on his overall body of work. I think he's a major contender in here. Galleon Mast, I think in that Sunshine Millions Turf preview that we saw, that was back at Gulfstream Park West, I believe it was in November. I think he actually had the worst trip of the two between he and Enterprising, and ultimately they ran 1-2. If you reverse the trip, I wonder if Galleon Mast gets the job done as opposed to Enterprising. I think they are 2 prime contenders, but I also think the horse that I'm most interested in, and he's my pick and part of the play as we swing over to this camera, which is always fun, is Swagger Jagger. I think Swagger Jagger, off the claim from Mike Maker. They had this horse, these same connections, 2 starts back, was claimed away, then reclaimed by them. I think he's sitting on go. Sounds like he's working well according to the DRF Clocker report. You can purchase that on DRF.com. I like everything about him in here. I think he's going to be a very, very fair number. I think he's 15-1 on the line. I'd be stunned if he was 15. I think he's probably going to be in the 8 or 9-1 range. As you can see, I made him 6-1. For me, it's as simple as a $20 win wager on this horse, Swagger Jagger. And just in case, as you've seen in the past, I'm going to play a little bit of a saver exacted with those other 2 favorites, I think, in there. I'm going to try to beat Our Way. I'm going to use Enterprising. I'm going to use Galleon Mast on top of Swagger Jagger and Exactas. And again, for those of you that are new to this thing, I'm throwing dollar signs out there, those numbers, just a base bet, whatever it is. If you play for $2, great. If you play for $200, that's on you. Your prerogative. I'm just throwing numbers out there. So Swagger Jagger for me is the play and the bet in here in this race. That would be the Sunshine Millions Turf. The filly and mare counterpart, let's talk about that race. Race number 10 on tomorrow afternoon's card down at Gulfstream. It's a field of 10. Let's take a look. You've got Elizabeth Aurora, 32-1. Bonita, 9-1. Bitacora, 19-1. Starship Jubilee, 3-1. Katinka, 12-1. Daddy's Boo with Javier aboard. Probably going to be cutting out the fraction, 7-2. Graceful Heart, 16-1. Surprise Wedding, 19-1. So we go over to numbers 9 and 10. The number 9, Ava London, 19-1. And Jostes Animo, 7-1. This is a race that, on paper, there's one horse that's supposed to be kind of, I want to say head and shoulders above, considering she was claimed for $16,000 about a year ago. But Starship Jubilee is supposed to win this race. Depends how you want to look at that most recent run. In the Claiming Crown, I thought it was good, not great, but not offensive. Let's put it that way. She's supposed to win here. I don't think I'm going to get the 3-1 that I pegged her at, but having said that, I think there is a play in here. And the pick for me is Starship Jubilee, because I don't think I get the win wager, and I also am terrified of Daddy's Boo being left alone on the front end with Javier up. For me, instead of a win wager on Starship Jubilee, this is a $10 exacta box. Give me Starship Jubilee, give me Daddy's Boo. If it comes in either way, it's probably not going to make you a ton of money, but I think those are the two horses that you're going to need to fear. Daddy's Boo, again, that tactical speed, being able to go out there, especially if you don't think anybody else is going to go with her. And you get, I said yesterday in the stakes preview, if not for Julian Leperoux, I think Javier is probably the best on the front end, and Javier is clearly one of the best riders we've seen in the past 15, 20 years. So you could go much worse than having Javier on a speed horse out there, potentially lone speed. $10 exacta box from me in the filly and mare turf. That is Starship Jubilee as well as Daddy's Boo. We go to the West Coast, going down the hill, the Las Ciénegas. This is the graded stakes race in the feature at the Great Race Place tomorrow afternoon, a field of 9. Let's take a look at that field. The number 1, Kanaya, I think is very, very dangerous in here. I think this is a pretty wide open race, to be honest with you. 5-1 for Kanaya. The 2, Bendable, trying turf for the first time with Mike Smith and Richard Mandela, 6-1. The 3, Angel Alley, 9-1. The number 4, Princess, 32-1. Miss Southern Miss, a horse that I've been disappointed in. I thought she was going to be better than she has been. Maybe going down the hill will wake her up, 19-1. Anita Partner for Jeff Mullins, 5-1. Proper Discretion, 9-1. Instant Reflex, 9-1. And Beau Recall, another one of my favorites, 6-1. This is an instance where I think some of these horses really want to go down the hill, and some of them, the connections are just kind of taking a stab and hoping to wake them up again. I think the stab applies to Beau Recall. I think the stab applies to Bendable, hoping that all of a sudden maybe they just need to try something different to wake them up and get them back into their best form, because recently it's just not getting the job done. I think Beau Recall, this is going to be too short for it. She's going to be completely outrun, even if there's not a lot of speed signed on. And Bendable, I'm just really not sure if turf is going to be her game. There's one horse in here that I know that she absolutely loves going down the hill, and I think she can be a little bit adaptable depending on the pace scenario. That's Anita Partner. I think Kanaya is a major win contender as well, which leads into how I'm going to play this race. My pick in this spot here is Anita Partner. I think she's just a tremendous filly going down the hill. This is what she's wanted to do all along. The little bit of a layoff, not a concern. She can be 2 or 3 lengths out of it. She can also be 6 or 7 lengths out of it, depending on what the pace scenario is. If it doesn't develop early and Kanaya's out there on a relatively easy lead, I think you can get Anita Partner into the running, and I have more faith in her being able to finish at the very end than I do in Kanaya. Now, having said that, so it's going to be a win wager for Anita Partner, but again, just in case with a little bit of a saver, I want Kanaya in there. I want Beau Recall in there in case Beau Recall is simply just the best horse in the race, and the 6.5 furlongs is no issue for her. So it's a win wager on Anita Partner, and it's also saver exactas with Kanaya and Beau Recall over Anita Partner in the feature at Santa Anita on Saturday afternoon. For those of you that have been watching live, thank you for doing so. Again, you know all the spots to find it live, but for most of you, you check it out podcast. Again, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com. We will be back on Tuesday with the Matt Bernier Show, the recap edition. We'll go over many of these races that we've talked about here, all 3 of these to be exact. We'll also go over some other things, get you ready for some big racing next week, which is highlighted. I think if you've been living under a rock, maybe you don't realize this, but next Saturday is going to be the Pegasus World Cup. So we're looking forward to that. Should be a good race. Hoping to see the best from Gun Runner in his final career start. But there's good stuff in between that time and now. As always, on Friday, we have this nice little block here. 11 o'clock, the Daily Racing Form Players podcast. The boys do a great job. PTF and JK. This is the Matt Bernier Show, as always, at noon. And then we lead in to the latest edition of Out of the Gate with all of the usual suspects. Best of luck this weekend, wherever you're playing, however you're playing, whatever you're playing. On Tuesday, we'll be back to recap all the best action from this weekend. Without further ado, here is Out of the Gate.